The starship Aurora drifted silently through the void, its sleek hull reflecting the infinite expanse of stars like liquid silver. Commander Kale Voss stood at the viewport, his piercing gaze fixed on the horizon where a distant nebula pulsed with eerie light. He had spent years chasing shadows, seeking answers about the mysterious Eclipse protocol that haunted every transmission from the Syntharx Empire. What began as whispers among rogue factions had evolved into an undeniable threat, a program capable of rewriting reality itself. Kale adjusted his neural implant, feeling the hum of data coursing through his mind. His crew waited below, their faces etched with equal parts hope and apprehension. They were no longer just soldiers. They were the first line of defense against an enemy that defied logic. As the ship's AI announced their arrival at the rendezvous point, Kale felt the weight of history pressing down on him. This was more than a mission, it was a chance to reclaim humanity's place among the stars. The hangar bay buzzed with activity as engineers worked feverishly to prepare the assault shuttles. Lieutenant Rhea Miles double-checked her weapon systems, ensuring every component was calibrated to perfection. She had seen too many battles to take anything for granted, but something about this operation felt different. The intel they'd intercepted spoke of a new weapon prototype, one rumored to harness the power of black holes. If true, it would give the Syntharx an unprecedented edge in their endless campaign of conquest. Rhea glanced over at Ensign Jax, who was running diagnostics on the navigation matrix. His usual confidence seemed tinged with doubt today. "We'll get through this," she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. Jax nodded, though his expression remained tense. "It's not just us anymore," he replied. "It's everyone back home. We can't fail." Around them, the crew moved with purpose, each step bringing them closer to their destination. Rhea took a deep breath, feeling the familiar surge of adrenaline. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The transmission arrived without warning, crackling through the ship's comm system like static electricity. A distorted voice echoed through the bridge, sending shivers down Kale's spine. "Attention, Stellar Vanguard. Your presence here is no coincidence. The time has come to choose your side." The screen flickered, revealing a fragmented image of a woman cloaked in shadows. Her voice carried an otherworldly resonance, as if amplified by some unseen force. "The Syntharx seek dominion over all life, but they do not understand the true nature of power. It is yours to claim, should you have the courage." Kale clenched his fists, struggling to maintain control. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. The figure hesitated, then extended a hand toward the camera. "I am the architect of destiny. Together, we will forge a new path, or watch everything crumble beneath the weight of their ambition." The connection severed abruptly, leaving only silence in its wake. Kale turned to his crew, seeing the same questions reflected in their eyes. "Prepare for battle," he ordered, his resolve hardening. "We're going in." The shuttle descended rapidly through the atmosphere, buffeted by turbulence as it approached the target zone. Rhea gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white against the metallic surface. Below them stretched a sprawling complex, its towers jutting skyward like jagged teeth. Security drones patrolled the perimeter, their crimson lights casting ominous shadows across the landscape. "Hold tight," Rhea called out, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Jax monitored the external sensors, his brow furrowed in concentration. "They've detected us," he reported. "Multiple hostiles inbound." Kale activated his tactical display, mapping out their route to the central command center. "Stay focused," he said, his tone commanding yet calm. "This isn't about survival. It's about delivering a message." The shuttle shuddered violently as they entered the hangar bay, forcing Rhea to compensate with expert precision. "Landing sequence initiated," she announced, her voice betraying no fear. The ramp lowered with a hiss, revealing a squad of heavily armed guards. "Move out," Kale barked, leading the charge with unyielding determination. The corridors were eerily silent, save for the rhythmic clatter of boots against polished metal floors. Kale's team advanced cautiously, their weapons trained on every shadowed alcove. Each step brought them deeper into the heart of the facility, closer to the source of the Eclipse protocol. "Any sign of the weapon?" Kale asked, his voice low and urgent. Jax shook his head, his eyes scanning the monitors. "Still offline," he replied. "But there's something strange about the security protocols." Rhea paused, her instincts screaming for caution. "What do you mean?" she asked, her finger hovering over the trigger guard. Jax tapped a few commands into his interface, his expression growing increasingly puzzled. "The systems aren't reacting like they should. It's almost like they're waiting for something." Kale frowned, sensing the tension rising around him. "Keep moving," he ordered, his voice cutting through the tension. "We don't have time for riddles." As they rounded a corner, they encountered their first resistance, a group of Syntharx soldiers emerging from a side corridor. "Engage!" Kale shouted, raising his weapon. The firefight erupted with brutal intensity, rounds ricocheting off walls as both sides exchanged volleys. Rhea took cover behind a maintenance console, returning fire with pinpoint accuracy. "Cover me!" she yelled, spotting an opening in the enemy formation. Jax provided suppressive fire while Kale coordinated their movements, his tactical overlay guiding their advance. "Flank left," he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. The team executed the maneuver flawlessly, catching the enemy off guard and forcing them to retreat. "Clear," Rhea announced, emerging from cover with a triumphant grin. "Not bad for amateurs," she quipped, earning a rare smile from Kale. They pressed onward, their path now littered with discarded weapons and damaged equipment. "Something's wrong," Jax muttered, his focus shifting to the environmental controls. "The temperature's dropping. Fast." Kale glanced at the readouts, his instincts bristling. "Check it out," he ordered, motioning for Jax to investigate. As they delved deeper, the air grew colder, the walls themselves seeming to pulse with unnatural energy. The central command center loomed before them, its massive doors sealed tight against intrusion. Kale studied the reinforced plating, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to disable the locks," he said, turning to his team. "Jax, any ideas?" The engineer worked quickly, interfacing with the terminal while monitoring the surrounding systems. "It's encrypted," he reported, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "But I think I can bypass it." Rhea kept watch, her weapon ready for any surprises. "How long?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension. Jax hesitated, his expression grim. "It's going to take time, and we're not alone." Sure enough, the alarms blared to life, signaling their presence. "Here they come," Rhea warned, sighting down her rifle. Kale positioned himself strategically, his tactical overlay highlighting potential threats. "Hold position," he ordered, his voice firm. "We finish this here." The doors finally gave way with a resounding clang, revealing a vast chamber filled with advanced machinery. At its center stood a figure cloaked in darkness, their features obscured by a shimmering veil. The figure stepped forward, their presence commanding attention. "Welcome, warriors of the Vanguard," they intoned, their voice resonating with authority. "You have proven yourselves worthy adversaries." Kale raised his weapon, his hand steady despite the unease coiling in his gut. "Where's the weapon?" he demanded, his tone challenging. The figure gestured toward the machinery, its functions beginning to activate with eerie precision. "This is but a fraction of what lies within," they replied cryptically. Rhea scanned the area, her senses heightened. "Why help us?" she asked, her curiosity outweighing her caution. The figure inclined their head, their form shifting slightly in the dim light. "Because the Syntharx underestimate humanity's potential. They believe themselves invincible, but they are wrong." Kale lowered his weapon slightly, sensing an opportunity. "Prove it," he challenged, his voice carrying steel. The figure extended a hand, their eyes glowing faintly. "Join me, and together we shall rewrite the stars." The decision hung heavy in the air, each second stretching into eternity. Kale glanced at his team, seeing the same questions mirrored in their expressions. What happens if we refuse? He asked, his voice betraying no weakness. The figure tilted their head, their form shimmering like liquid light. Then you fight alone, they replied simply. But know this, the Syntharx will consume everything, including your defiance. Rhea tightened her grip on her weapon, her mind racing. What do you want from us? She demanded, her tone sharp. The figure smiled, though it held no warmth. Your loyalty, your strength, your belief in something greater than yourselves. Kale stepped forward, his resolve solidifying. And if we succeed? He asked, his voice steady. The figure raised a hand, revealing a fragment of glowing energy. You become architects of your own destiny, or victims of another's design. The room seemed to vibrate with anticipation, the very air charged with possibility. We accept, Kale declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. The figure nodded, their form dissolving into a cascade of particles. The transformation began subtly, a tingling sensation spreading through Kale's body as the Eclipse protocol activated. His neural implant flared to life, interfacing directly with the cosmic energy coursing through him. What's happening? Rhea asked, her voice laced with concern. Kale closed his eyes, feeling the boundaries between flesh and technology blur. I don't know, he admitted, his voice carrying a new resonance. Jax monitored the readings, his eyes widening in disbelief. His biometrics are shifting, he reported. He's integrating with the system. Rhea backed away slightly, her weapon lowering instinctively. Is this safe? She asked, her tone betraying uncertainty. Kale opened his eyes, his pupils now glowing faintly. It's not safe, he replied, his voice carrying a hint of awe. But it's necessary. The room seemed to shift around them, the machinery responding to Kale's presence. What now? Jax asked, his voice steady despite the surreal circumstances. Kale straightened, his posture exuding newfound confidence. Now we end this. The battle erupted with devastating force, waves of Syntharx troops pouring into the chamber. Kale moved with preternatural speed, his enhanced abilities manifesting in ways he never imagined. Stay close, he ordered, his voice carrying a new timbre. Rhea fought with lethal precision, her skills amplified beyond comprehension. What's happening to him? She shouted over the din of combat. Jax provided covering fire, his movements synchronized with the others. He's channeling the energy, Jax replied, his voice strained. But it's unstable. Kale unleashed a wave of force, sending enemies flying backward. I can feel it, he growled, his voice carrying an otherworldly quality. It's tearing me apart. Rhea caught a glancing blow, her armor absorbing the impact. Hold on, she shouted, her determination unwavering. The fight raged on, each clash more intense than the last. We need to regroup, Kale called out, his voice cutting through the chaos. Find a way to stabilize the system. The central console hummed with energy, its displays flickering erratically. We're losing him, Jax shouted, his voice filled with urgency. Rhea fought back-to-back with Kale, their movements a seamless dance of destruction. Focus on the core, Kale roared, his voice strained. Jax worked furiously, interfacing with the machine while dodging incoming fire. I can't lock onto it, he cried, his frustration mounting. Rhea took a hit, her armor smoking from the impact. Kale, she shouted, her concern overriding her discipline. Kale staggered, his enhanced form wavering under the strain. Finish it, he gasped, his voice weak but determined. Jax found a breakthrough, his fingers flying across the interface. Got it, he exclaimed, his voice filled with relief. The machine surged with energy, the room shaking violently. Do it, Kale commanded, his voice barely audible. Jax triggered the final sequence, the chamber flooding with light. The explosion was blinding, waves of energy rippling outward like a supernova. Kale stood amidst the chaos, his form stabilized but altered. Report, he barked, his voice carrying authority. Jax emerged from the debris, his suit scorched but intact. System neutralized, he confirmed, his voice steady. Rhea surveyed the aftermath, her expression a mix of awe and relief. What just happened? She asked, her voice soft. Kale turned to the remains of the central console, his eyes glowing faintly. A new beginning, he replied, his voice carrying a sense of purpose. The team regrouped, their bond forged in the crucible of battle. We did it, Rhea whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Kale nodded, his gaze sweeping across the battlefield. Not yet, but we're closer. The aftermath was a testament to their resilience, remnants of their struggle scattered across the chamber. Kale stood at the viewport, gazing out into the stars. What now? Rhea asked, her voice tinged with curiosity. Kale turned, his expression thoughtful. Now, we show them what it means to stand against the tide. Jax joined them, his analytical mind already calculating next steps. We need to secure the evidence, he stated, his voice professional. Rhea smirked, her confidence restored. And make sure the Syntharx remember our names. Kale smiled faintly, his leadership inspiring confidence. Let's go home, he said, his voice carrying a sense of purpose. The ship powered up, its engines humming with renewed vigor. To victory, Jax added, his voice filled with determination. As the aurora soared through the stars, Kale stood on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the horizon. This is just the beginning, he said, his voice carrying conviction. Rhea joined him, her presence grounding him. We'll write our own story, she replied, her voice filled with resolve. Jax worked at his station, his mind already planning the next move. Together, Kale added, his voice echoing through the ship. The crew gathered around him, their bond stronger than ever. To the stars, Rhea declared, her voice carrying hope. Kale nodded, his vision clear. And beyond. The ship accelerated, leaving a trail of light in its wake. Subscribe to see what comes next, Kale said, his voice carrying a subtle invitation. Because the future belongs to those who dare to dream.